Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology at the University of Lethbridge. From there, I went to Mount Royal College to finish my athletic therapy, and then moved back to Alberta, or back to Lethbridge to work with their rugby program. So I was at the university with their rugby program for 2 years, and then I went to Warner Hockey Academy. I was in Warner with their girls program for 2 years, and then moved back out to BC at long last. I did 1 season with the North Okanagan Knights, and then the next season I contracted to Pursuit of Excellence. I've been, since then, at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan with their athletics program, and last year was recruited to Okanagan Hockey Academy. So kind of come full circle back to hockey, where I started. I've been with Hockey Canada for, I'm going into my 6th year with Hockey Canada now. I went to Worlds with the senior women's national team last year in Sweden, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of their program, like I said, for 6 years now. So that's kind of who I am and where I come from, and I was kind of asked to talk to you guys a little bit about hockey safety, the trainer role, warm-ups and cool-downs, and kind of everything that is encompassed in the trainer's role on the team. So I encourage you guys to ask lots of questions. I just kind of put together a few things. We weren't sure whether you're expecting to get up and move today or more of a lecture, so maybe we'll do a little bit of both, so that you guys can kind of see things and maybe get some kind of coaching tips and things like that. Just before we start, is there anything specifically that you guys have, like, you want to make sure that I touch on today, just in case I'm running out of time, I don't miss it? Anybody? No? Just here generally for some information? Okay. So basically I want to start talking about credentials. When I kind of sat down to think about what would be important, I thought that was a good place to start. Kind of with trainers, Hockey Canada, safety people, your scope of practice dictates everything that you can do. So whether or not you come from a first aid background, emergency medical responder, or have some more advanced training, that really decides how much you can do or can't do and how much you can get involved from the medical standpoint. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I wanted to touch on pregame warm-ups, because that's the big thing that we can control and can be part of getting teams into those kind of habits. And so I had some ideas for kind of what we do for pregame warm-ups. Bench management, so your role as a trainer actually on the ice and in pregame and kind of preparation. So what we do at Okanagan Hockey Academy and as well at the Hockey Canada level, kind of the expectations. Obviously touching on cool-downs, getting those athletes into those routines. Injury management, documentation, and then I also wanted to talk about sport concussion management, which is a program available in the Okanagan and the Valley for actually helping teams manage concussions and return players and stuff like that. So the first thing, just talking about what a certified athletic therapist is. How many of you have actually heard of a certified athletic therapist? Okay, that's awesome. That's actually really good, because most people say, like, what is that and how is that different than a physio? So certified athletic therapists, we're governed by the Board of Athletic Therapists here in Canada. You have a minimum of a 4-year bachelor's degree. For myself, I did 2 separate degrees because I was actually planning to go to med school. So you can go about it a couple different ways. In order to get into the program of athletic therapy, you have to complete emergency medical responder, and then you also have to have a 40-hour taping course before you're actually accepted into the program. Some of the programs have changed a little bit now, so you do it kind of within, but that's kind of what you get. In order to actually qualify to write your board exams, you are required to have 600 practical hours in a clinic, and then an additional 600 hours of practical experience with a team, so on the field. So tons of hours just to qualify. It's a 70% minimum on your written practical and field practical exams in order to actually lots of emergency care, lots goes into being kind of that trainer that you see or hear about with professional sports. The term trainer in Canada, we go by certified athletic therapist as a way to kind of show our level of training so that people are aware of when we ask and when they say yes. You know who you're working with when you ask for help. That's the big thing is, do you have training? Have you had, like, what level of first aid and that kind of thing? And that's always a nice thing to know when the person beside you is helping you manage an injury, right? In the United States, NADA is their governing body, and they go by certified athletic trainers. So that's where the term trainer started, was in the States. That's their term for it. So a little bit different than our certification protocols, but ultimately kind of the same thing. So in Canada, any person can be called a trainer. You don't need any special training in order to have that title, whereas athletic therapist is a protected title for people who have gone through the certification kind of process. So again, just so that you guys know, are all of you in here safety people, Hockey Canada safety people? Are there just, like, are there coaches in the room, or are you guys all dual? Yeah. Okay, so again, here in BC, they mandate respect in sport and the Hockey Canada safety person, at least one on the bench. And that's very only in BC. I had never even heard of it. I worked for Hockey Canada for 3 years when I was in Alberta, and I moved here, and they said, you don't have respect in sports, so you can't come on our bench. And I was like, oh, okay. I work for Hockey Canada, but I don't have Hockey Canada safety person. I'm no longer allowed on the bench. So that was a new thing to me. So everyone in BC gets to do the course. So, yeah. So responsibilities, like I said, I touched on those things. But basically, these are the kinds of things that you guys should be responsible for as the safety people, or if you're working in the trainer role with the team. Dressing room setup is huge. That's a huge part of what the trainer does when you get to the provincial level, is teaching athletes how to set up their dressing room, how to care for their equipment, and kind of starting to set those specific roles and start those habits for when they move on, if they go to junior hockey or that sort of thing. You'd be responsible for the pre-game warm-ups, so teaching the athletes how to do that, and then maybe they become independent enough they run themselves under the direction of their captain or whatever. But typically that would be you who gets that role started. Okay, bench management and safety. Emergency action plans, I think, is, if you take nothing else away from today, as a safety person, the emergency action plan is the most important part of your job. Injury management, obviously something happens, that's you have to make the decision and the call. Cool downs, and then just wanted to touch really quickly on documentation. So the dressing room, a lot of times athletes are coming into their teams and they've never actually been a part of a team that maybe has a dressing room all the time, or that has ever had any kind of structure. Lots of times moms and dads bring them to the rink and help them get their gear on, especially depending on what age group it is. So as they kind of develop, we want to start to teach them how to set up. First and foremost, it helps with their gear drying out, decreasing skin abrasions and things like that from always dressing in wet gear. So teaching them how to actually set up a stall is, while it looks neat and tidy, is actually more important from a drying standpoint. Helps to dry out their gear so they don't get kind of all the ringworms and joyous things that spread around. It helps increase kind of the pride they take when they walk into the room and all the gear is set up and all the jerseys are there. It looks nice, right? And they feel a little bit of pride towards their club. It starts to kind of create that idea of discipline. I come in, I set up, it's part of my pre-game routine. Whether that be that you get to keep the dressing room or not, the first thing they do when they get to rink, set up their gear. The other thing that does is actually make sure they have all their gear. So, 5 minutes before the game and I'm just getting my neck guard, I don't actually have it. If they actually set up their stall and know where everything is, that gives you, you know, if they're there half an hour early or an hour early, gives you an hour to find a net guard instead of 2 minutes before the game starts. So that's another really nice thing, is having them actually come in, set up their stall. Now they know if there's equipment missing, if I forgot my mouth guard or my neck guard or whatever it is that they might not have. Everything to their skates. I have seen, oh, I don't have my skates. Well, that's going to be a problem, right? So it's a nice way to keep that. And again, like I said, if you are in a tournament style and you get to keep the room, again, now every time the coach walks in, bags are tucked under the bench. It just gives that little bit of a higher level of professionalism. So yeah, basically this would be a pretty standard like stall setup. If you don't have the actual shelves and stuff like that, having them do the exact same sort of setup on the bench so that everything can sit in air, running shoes and stuff tucked underneath with their bags, right? So that when they set up, they know exactly where everything goes. Usually they get 1 or 2 hooks to themselves in the room, so the jerseys come out and hang over the top of this portion of it, right? So pretty much anywhere you go, you can make it squeeze. And it, like I said, it's just a nice kind of building that routine. Because that's the big thing we want to start to see them develop, right? As they're getting into their pregame rituals, they know how to prepare, so it's a little bit more of that professional kind of style. Any questions about that? Comments? Okay. Pregame warm-ups. So it's getting to be a lot more common, see more teams doing it, trying to arrive a little bit earlier than just throw on the gear and go. So pregame warm-ups should be 15 to 20 minutes long, minimum. Okay, it's hard to get more than that, so that's kind of what we work with, is that 15 to 20 minutes. But that would be the shortest I would want to go, is 15 minutes if I could. It should have an aerobic component, so where they actually go and just jog the parking lot, jog around a portion of the rink that they're allowed to jog around in, what have you, to actually get their heart rates up. So we want to first get the blood flowing, work off the bus legs, have them run around just to kind of get things waking up. Once you do that aerobic component, then you want to move into the dynamic part. So you don't see a lot of teams doing static stretching or the stretch with the hold anymore pregame, because the research has shown that it doesn't really prevent injury to actually sit and stretch, as well as doing dynamic movements. So we're trying to prepare the muscle to move the way it will move on the ice, which is why that big shift has happened towards the dynamic movement stuff. So usually you'll go through a cycle. You want to try and hit all of the major muscle groups and all of the major joints. So, you know, depending on what level, again, that you're working at, and whether you're working female or male, you know, things like warming up their shoulders, doing a little bit of neck movement stuff. When they're going to get hit and crunched 100 times, right? Most hockey players don't even think about their upper body when it comes to doing a warm-up. They're all worried about the lower body and that kind of thing, but their arms and shoulders are involved so much, their elbows and their wrists, and they don't even really incorporate that part. So trying to actually think about all the different muscles that are going to be involved, all the different joints that are going to take impact, so that you're touching on each of those. You want to try and keep their heart rates elevated throughout. So you don't want to put together a bunch of slower movements. I'll go through an example here in a minute. But where, you know, they might be going through sumo squats. Well, it takes them a long time to get all the way down this way, right? So their heart rates are going to start to slow down. So you want to mix that with maybe high knees, where that's going to start to increase their heart rates. So you want to try and have a nice mix of, there might be a fast one and then one of the slower ones. You want to get through that nice hamstring stretch. They got to move a little slower so that they're not actually pulling anything. But then you want to make sure you bring their heart rates back up. So by the end of the workout, they should be sweating. They should truly be warm and have sweat. If they're not, then it's unlikely that they're sufficiently warmed up. trying to keep that heart rate elevated, it's nice to have those moments where it slows down, but then you want to bring it back up. Because the bad thing about hockey is there's always that 20 to 30 minute dressing kind of thing, right? And you're losing a lot of what you just gained through your warm-up. So trying to keep their heart rates up right to the last minute if you can. Usually after kind of the dynamic movements, like I said, we'll go through an example and get you guys up and moving around a little bit. But you want to go from that into kind of the graduated explosive. So we want them to be fast, we want them to be powerful, we want them to be able to explode. So you want to actually take them through that. Let their bodies, let that muscle warm up, get used to it. Preparation, right? Preparation for what they're about to do in the game. So having them learn what 50% feels like. Have them learn what 75% feels like. And then take them through full sprints. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. Actually having them do cued stuff. So they might be jumping up and down until you blow a whistle or slap your hands. So that they have to actually react and do that transition. So again, now we're teaching them, I'm transitioning from jumping to a movement, or have them backwards, and then once you blow the whistle, they actually have to turn and transition. So now you're starting to incorporate the brain into your warm-up. Okay, so from there, after the sprints, you want to really get that neural preparation. So doing some things, again, where you're coordinating brain and body. Okay, you might be giving a direction. So, you know, I'll go with my team. If I put this hand up, you're doing fast feet, slow arms, right? So having the brain do something different in my upper body. I'm not moving fast here like my legs, right? I have to be slow on the top and fast on the bottom. So that's, again, neural preparation where they're having to coordinate those movements, think about multiple things, and then I'll go right hand. Now they gotta jump, and then back into it, right? Go left hand. So then they switch. So now they're having to actually go off of cues I give them and try and keep up, right? So you mix it up, switch it up, make them jump down onto their stomachs, whatever. And that helps to prepare them for actually thinking and coordinating, this guy's moving this way, I move this way, right? So not just body, but again, getting everything working together, increasing that coordination, that neurological preparation. And like I said, athletes should be sweating by the end. Okay, it's not, you're not going to tire them out, and they're going to use that 1,000 times to say, I'm so tired from my warm-up, I can't play anymore. This is preparation. They should be sweating. It shouldn't be easy. Starts easy, builds hard. Because that's, I mean, you've probably seen it where if the game's late in the day, sometimes they don't play as well as if they have to get up and do it first thing, right? So you want to actually wake them up, get them going, make it hard. Okay, let's get up. So I'm not going to make you guys do like a crazy workout or anything like that, but I think just having a couple people do some of the movements, it helps you to learn how to critique a little bit as a coach. Because you're looking for certain things too, right? We've all heard perfect practice makes perfect, right? So actually teaching them those pieces inside of the dynamic warm-up. Okay, so the first thing I always start with is high knees. They've been doing it since they were little, and it's really easy. But different high knees look different, right? For me, I'm really trying to get both going, right? Where lots of them are just like, well, this is high because I'm jogging, you know, with my knees going forward instead of backwards, right? So somebody give me your best high knees. Anybody?
Leah.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Good. Okay. So that's great, and you actually demonstrated what lots of them do. Didn't use my arms at all.
Yeah.
Do I skate? Do I skate like this, right? So getting them to think about those little things. I want to get my upper body going too. If I move my arms faster, it's easier to move my legs faster. So how do I incorporate those pieces into the warm-up. So they're starting to warm up with a purpose, not just, coach says I have to do high knees, so I'm going to do this, you know. They start to actually think about, hey, this is part of how I prepare for my game. This is actually making me better every time I play a game because I pay attention to this part. Okay, who's got butt kicks? Okay?
I'm going to lose my shoes.
Definitely. Okay, that was really good because she's actually getting there, right? That was awesome. So I don't even have a lot of critiques. Same thing, I would say make sure you're pumping those arms. But a lot of the kids, right, they're just like this. Never even get close, right? I'm just going through it. So again, she was right up there, like, because you get that quad stretch, right? That's what we're looking for by telling them to actually kick back there. One, you might get hip extension if they're really getting back this way. But you're also getting that quad stretch, putting it on a rapid stretch, pulling it down, right? And that's where, same thing, you're taking it through that full range of motion, which is what we're looking for. Here it's that hip flexor, all the way up, all the way down. Now we're looking for that quad. How do I get full range? Prep for the knee joint, right? Get that movement going. So that was very good. Very good, okay? So straight leg kicks. Who's got a straight leg kick for me?
Come
Oh, that was
very
good.
good.
Okay?
That's his ballet.
With the arms, I guess.
Yeah, with arms, right? So getting them to actually reach for it. Maybe get them to come up onto their toe. So now I'm getting a calf activation at the same time. Lots of them are like this. We've all seen this, right? Can't keep my legs straight or don't want to. And I'm all hunched over, okay? Flat foot, same thing. Here I am cruising along, right? Where if you actually are going for it, I go opposite, because you get a little bit of a nerve stretch out of that, okay? Telling them to really try, if they can only get here, because their hamstrings are so tight, I don't care if their back is straight, right? I don't want to see this. Because as soon as I break here, I'm not getting that same nerve stretch. I'm not getting that same hamstring stretch because my pelvis has tipped. So trying to encourage them, all of our hamstrings are different. All of us can take something different. But if you're straight up, heads up in hockey, right? That's what I tell them all the time. Do you have your head down in hockey? No, you get smoked. Heads up, chest high, right? And that's going to help that posture. So they start to build that skill. Okay, so those were some kind of higher energy ones, like to start that way, get them going. Next one I got in there is a walking quadricep stretch. So just a step, grab, and reach. Okay, lots of the kids like to do this. Okay, not sure why. That was like a big trend that came into the academy this year. For me, again, it's not that it's wrong, it's just activating different things. So as soon as I bend, I've lost that extension here. Hockey players are in flexion all the time. So any opportunity we have to put them into extension, it's great for those hip flexors. So having them reach high instead, knees stay nice and close together. Okay, if you guys all do this right now, feel the difference if you tuck your knees together. Okay, we all carry a lot of tightness here, especially hockey players. This is their happy place, right? Lots of them really struggle to even pull to here. If you need more, push that knee back. Feel the difference there. Okay, so now that's getting into rectus femoris, crossing both the hip and the knee. Okay, so there's different quad muscles, but that's getting that nice stretch. Some of you might even feel that through your abdomen into the abdominals when you reach up. So again, they get so tight because we have them here all the time. Everything we do, this is all closed down. Okay, so that's one of my favorite ones for them. For that reason, we're pushing them into extension, and you get a really good glute activation out of it, which is ideal for a hockey player. Okay, swoops, cherry picks, strawberry picks, whatever, is just a step and a sweep, right? You guys have all seen that before? Who's got one for me? Anybody? Demonstrate? Somebody's done this before. Okay, fine. Okay, so what I normally see is this. Okay, we're looking for, again, nice straight back. Okay, so all of you do that. Do it how you would do it. Okay, but now try and keep your back straight and do the exact same movement. You're going to feel that hamstring way faster. Okay? Should have had to do the high knees first. Okay, so again, just that little change. Try and bend your back, like round it right out. See how much further you can get, how much different it feels. Right? So those little things make a huge difference for the kids. So just plain and simple. The other thing I see is they like to open up. Okay, legs kind of pointed out this way, and they want to come this way, because look how far they can go now. So I'm really getting into it. Look at me, right? But now they're missing that nice straight hip, legs coming straight out, right, and getting full activation of the hamstring. And again, this is something totally different. You'll feel that somewhere else. It's just dependent on what you're looking for from your stretch. And that's what I always tell them. If that feels good, it's not wrong. But we're trying to achieve this. Okay? And there might be there's a million ways to do everything, right? Nothing's wrong. It's just trying to hit all those groups. Okay, so swoops are going to be slow. So then I want to take them back into karaoke. Karaoke, the kids all like to sing. Okay? So there's two different types. Can somebody show me karaoke?
I only know one type.
Okay, awesome.
I want to take my shoes off.
Okay, perfect. Trunk rotation, right? So that's why we do that. You get that hip step, which is great, but we're looking for trunk rotation out of that. So we're starting to now warm up that low back, get them used to, hey, if I'm going to take a hit in this position, my back's been there, okay? All of those muscles around there have been activated in a safe manner. I'm in control. Okay, so that's the one. Okay, have you guys seen this one? With hip drive? Okay, so same thing. Things haven't changed that much. Only now that I'm not trying to accentuate that rotation, I'm actually trying to get that explosive hip flexor drive. So here, drive, right? And then this way, here, right? Driving through. So again, you're getting that abdominal activation, hip flexion, okay, that same stride movement. So glute activation, glute med activation to drawing up and over, okay? And coordination, right? So try that. I want you guys to try to knee drive. Nobody's watching.
That's all. I mean, that's not right?
Yep.
That's my
Okay. Okay, so everybody stop. That's awesome. So what I noticed with a couple people is they want to drive this way. Okay? Because we're all tight here. We all like this position, right? We want to sit this way. Nobody likes to come in this way. Okay? We force goalies to do it all day long, but they're the only ones. So having you actually think about when I drive, if I come here, I'm already pointed in the direction I want to move. If I'm here, I have way further to go. And now my hips are open, and I'm in a way more dangerous spot, groin-wise, than here. Now I'm closed. This is a pretty well-protected position, right? So driving here, up. Gonna make them more powerful. Again, not putting them in that risk open. Somebody clips the knee, boom, groin strain, right? So I have both of those, and I try to separate them, right? So that would be one of my fast that I would mix in after some slow. Sumo squat. So do you guys do sumo squat? Anybody? nice and low. So we have them hips wide, just like sumo wrestlers, right? It's exaggerated squat, chests are up high, and rotate. Here, down, up. Okay, so try that. Good.
Lots of cracking in the knees.
You want to snap that whistle.
Good. Okay, so if you kind of look around the room a little bit, you notice, you see a lot of where people's restrictions are, where their tightnesses are, right? Some people can't get down very low before they start to do this. And that's totally thoracic extension that you don't have. You're just so tight through your back that it's starting to pull you forward. So just coaching them to keep that chest high. They go as far as they can go before they start to lose that, right? And they love to mix that up and do lots of different things. And again, just trying to get them to come down. And there's that nice little explosion out. So now we've got that activation from a controlled, dangerous position, if you will, right? This is a big stretch. If I got hit or whatever, I could get an injury in that position fairly easily. So sumo squats, side shuffles, so just pure down low side shuffle, right? Kind of more of a basketball maneuver. You can do that a bunch of different ways. The thing you always see is they like to go forward, right? They want to be headed in that direction. So really working on keeping hips square, because they need to learn that, right? For their movements and how to transition out of being square. So having them working on that, and you can put transitions in it if you want to. Okay, knee drive, we did that. Hip openers, so there's a million hip openers. Pick your poison. You know, the typical soccer hip opener going this way. The big one they do a lot now is the step down and reach. Okay, a lot more aggressive. So if you're teaching little kids, they can probably do it. Are they getting anything out of it? It's hard to say. So kind of judging your group and how complicated you want things to be too, right? Because if they're just learning, well, this is probably the very best one to do. Really encourage them to go through the full range, because they do this, right? Look at me opening my hip, right? Compared to this, full range. Doesn't have to be fast, but feel the difference between here and here, right? Which is what we're trying to do. Skipping arm circles. Seems pretty simple. You start to see really quick which kids don't know how to skip. Okay, so now it's coordination, right? They're running around doing this. Okay, so getting them to, again, work through that full range. They all just want to do little baby circles. Is that prepping my shoulder? No. So having them actually full circle and then do another round backwards, right? Getting that full activation. That upper body step, right? We've done the trunk rotations, now we're doing shoulder. And if they're doing those big circles, that restriction we found over here, we're hitting that, activating that on the way through. Forward, backwards. Again, I just made a note, always emphasize arm movement and posture. Always. Because they want to crumple up and be in these back positions that we all get told 1,000 times are bad for your back. And they are, and they do it on the ice. You see your kid that skates like this, right? We all have them. So anytime in a nice controlled setting that they can think about it, encourage them to. So they're going to be a way better skater if they're not in this position all the time, right? And then again, so my fast feet. Let's do it, okay? So you're trying to move feet fast, so just start with fast feet. Now try to get those slow arms going. Okay, get low. We want our athletes down low. Slow arms, fast feet. Okay, stop. So you see real quick, right? Heart rate's going, brain's going. How do I get low, right? Because they want to start to stand up. Send them low. Quads are activating. Shins are activating. All of those things are going to help with that push, right? That snap at the end. Then you start your left, rights, circle, jump, belly. And they have to then follow you. Whew. Okay. It's hot in here all of a sudden. Yeah, and you can make that last part, that neural prep part, anything you want. Like I said, this is how I lead it. I don't have a whistle. They gotta watch me. Eyes on me. Hit the deck. Jump in the air. Right, left, fast feet. Right? So they're just getting back into it. And then, good, they're done. Go do your cheer and put your gear on. And then I would usually give them 2 to 3 minutes to work on the areas they need. So goalies especially. Goalies are our special athletes. They need time to do their thing. So give them 2 to 3 minutes. It's their time. If they have a groin strain, whatever it is, that they can do what they feel they need to be ready. A lot of them will static stretch. Lots of them will. And that's okay. There's nothing harmful about that. It helps them mentally feel like they're ready. And that's all that matters. So always give them those few minutes that is their prep time. Okay. I think that's it for now. Any questions about that before we move on?
Just, we play in a lot of different rinks,
Yep.
and a lot of the situations, it's pretty difficult to find a suitable space.
Mhm.
So a lot of times you're just sending the kids single file,
Yep.
it turns into a bit of a gong show.
Totally.
You got the right space.
Yep, for sure. The first thing I do whenever I get to a rink, I'm fortunate that I'm not a coach, I'm just a therapist. So when I get there, while the kids are setting up their stalls, I do a walk around the rink. Try to find a space, whether there's an open foyer somewhere. Some of the newer rinks have like wider corridors. It's not necessarily an area that's meant to be a warm-up space, but people are pretty good. If you ask and say, hey, like, do you mind if we warm up here? 9 times out of 10 people are gonna say go ahead, especially if the leader is there compared to just sending your group of kids and then they got sewer ball going and they're kicking balls at people and whatever, right? So that's the first thing I do when I get there while they set up their stalls is try and find a space. Living in the Okanagan, we're very fortunate, so we get to go outside for quite a long time before we actually can, right? Because of icy conditions. So my kids know we're gonna warm up outside. Bring whatever you need to bring in order to warm up outside. Because really, you're gonna be the cold one just standing there dictating. They're gonna be warm pretty quickly. And that changes, games in Saskatchewan and that kind of thing. Not so much an option, but for the most part, we're pretty fortunate here anyway, that there can be outside for a long time. Any other thoughts, comments, questions about that? Yeah. So bench management and safety. So like I said, while they're getting dressed, so we finished our warm-up now, they've gone to get their equipment on, I'm gonna do a walk of the bench. I go out, check the space, clean up anything I see, whether it's left tape, rocks, whatever it is, even if it's just a sweep with my foot to clear it out. Every edge you save is a groin you save, right? Really. So if you can get rid of any just little pebbles, rocks, whatever, lots of rinks are cleaner than other rinks, right? So if you can just clean up your bench, like I said, you save an edge, you save a groin. And it could be just that one rock that floats around and messes everybody up for that game. So it takes 2 seconds, walk out there, check your gates, right? We all get to that gate that won't open. Sometimes it's just a matter of tightening up a screw. So you can make that difference for that athlete trying to get out because you just took that 2 seconds, right? So checking the gates, make sure they open easily, decide where you're gonna stand. Some rinks are more convenient than others as far as where you are. You know, depending where I am with Hockey Canada, I open a gate. With the academy, I'm on the bench. They let the athletes open the gate. So again, everybody's different. Whatever your protocol with your bench is totally up to you. Just make sure you can see. So you want to see the kid, how they go into the boards. Because that's going to give you a lot of information when you start to step out there. If you're standing in the back and you ask somebody else what happened, you got their perspective, right? And if you see a kid go head first in the boards, you're going to approach it very differently than, oh, you got hit. What does that mean? Nothing, right? Gates. And then for us, we try to encourage the athletes to bring their own water, take some responsibility for themselves. I'm not their maid, I'm not their slave. I'm here to help out. I'm a coach. Okay, so encouraging them. I also don't want them on the bench with no water. So if I notice, right, where's your water bottle? Why is there 2 water bottles out here? Okay, it's flu season. I got a cold, you know? They're all sharing water bottles and suddenly your whole team is sick for the weekend. Well, that sucks. So trying to encourage them to be kind of on top of that themselves. Before they, you know, step off the side of the bench when they go back to the room, grab your water bottles, stand at the doorway when they come back out second period. Don't leave your water bottle in the dressing room. Grab your water bottle, right? So even though I'm not really filling them for them and packing them back and forth, trying to remind them to make that part of their routine, part of what they do. Because one day I'm not going to be there. I might be dealing with an injured athlete and I'm not there. Well, we didn't have any water because we weren't there to fill it up. That's not my problem. It's your problem. So just reminding them, hey, this is part of what you need to do for yourself. And spare sticks. They love to leave their spare stick in the dressing room. Like, always just leave it in the dressing room. So trying to teach them, you know, I will set it up myself so that it's out of the way, somewhere I can grab it quick. And mostly just so it doesn't get knocked over and now someone's stepping on it. Because again, now you just lost a blade. So, yeah. The biggest thing, the number one thing that got like slammed down my throat when I worked for Hockey Canada was close the gate. Always close the gate. When they go out there for practice, even if it's a drill that it's annoying for the gate to be open, close the gate, open the gate, close the gate. Because that is one of your biggest risks for hips, for backs, for shoulders, for heads, is that gate that got left open and they clip the edge of it, right? It's probably one of the most dangerous things out there. So closing that gate, whenever you see it, walk up, close the gate, close the gate. Hey guys, blow the whistle, someone go close the gate. Because you never know, a kid that, you know, they're not supposed to be working in that area, never fails. Somebody heads over there and then catches an edge and hits the edge of the gate. Okay, so the gates are huge. When I'm on the bench, I'm always watching for their equipment. Chin straps, see it all the time. Because they wear cages, I can see the chin strap down here. That's not doing you any good, okay? 2 fingers, right? I mean, once you get to junior hockey, it's so that there's none of this, so they can't grab it and then punch you in the face a bunch of times. But even from that little level, if you get hit and your chin strap's down here, your helmet will fall off. Okay, that's to help keep it, and that reduces that concussion, right? So chin straps are the biggest one, and they love to skip out on their neck guards. I don't really need this, right? Or I forgot it. So just always scanning, do you have your neck guard on? And again, no, I'm not a ref, no, I'm not here to get us a penalty, but I am here to be the safety person on the team. That is a required piece of equipment, okay? And it's your responsibility as a safety person to help keep them wearing the right equipment. The big thing for minor hockey is the size of their equipment, because they're using last year's gear and now their pants are up to here, right? You can see that huge space. Again, hockey equipment's super expensive. We understand like the demand on the parents and that monetary value, but that kid's at huge risk, right, for a quad contusion. contusion that you're too aggressive with turns into calcification of muscle, right? Again, those are worst case scenarios, but that's a big risk. You get a hard enough hit to the quad and your body starts to send calcium there. And now you get a little bony growth in that quad that is there forever, right? So just encouraging parents, hey, I notice little Johnny's equipment's a little bit small. You know, something you should probably start to think about or plan for. He's gonna need new hands. Because that is a risk, right? And you see it all the time, same with helmets. You see those kids where you can grab that thing and pop it off without undoing anything, right? Teaching them, a lot of times it's just an adjustment thing. Like we use the Bauer React helmet, and you can adjust them quite a bit in and out, plus they have the occipital kind of cup. So you can adjust their helmets quite a bit to try and make it a little bit more snug. So just kind of being aware, if their helmet's super loose, it's not helping them, okay? Mouth guards, you know, until you get to junior, I don't have any super strong feelings. They protect your teeth. There's no research to support that mouth guards reduce concussions, but they do prevent mouth injuries. So even just getting whacked on your chin and now your teeth jam together, if you got a mouth guard in, you're at least protecting your teeth, right? And again, junior hockey, insane to not wear a mouth guard, but that's, I like my teeth, so whatever. Yeah. And just monitoring. You know your kids, right? That's the other part. Just always watching your bench, okay? Notice this kid who always stands up all the time, never sits down. Why is he sitting there? Why has he been sitting there for 3 shifts? That's a kid you gotta check in with, right? It might just be that he's really mad, or he had a bad, you know, shift and he's angry or whatever. But you need to check in on that kid. And it might be a time for you to be like, hey, it's no big deal, you're doing fine. Get back up there. Or they're mad and it's time to give them a little kick in the butt that says like, hey, we don't need that negative energy on the bench, time to get out, right? So if you notice that and you see those kids, that's your opportunity to kind of touch base with them and say, hey, this isn't a standard thing, and it might be a head injury, it might be that they took a fall and they had a hit, and they're sitting there going, holy smokes, am I okay, right? So just always be monitoring your bench. It might be just as simple as, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Done. Okay? I saw them take a really bad hit. They come off. They're not blinking, or they love to adjust their helmets after they get hit. They're blinking a whole bunch, and they keep messing with their helmet. They're trying to make it comfortable. That's a kid I talk to right away, because they're trying to fix what doesn't feel right. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with their helmet. So yeah, bench management. Any other thoughts, questions about that? No? Anything else? I think that's 6:30 already. Okay, well I'm going to talk about emergency action plans because that was the only thing that was really, really, really important to me. So the emergency action plan, like I said, as the safety person on the team, this is the single most important thing you'll do. I could care less if you do any of the rest of it if you do this, because this is what saves a kid. This is what makes the difference in whether the ambulance is there in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, okay, because you had a plan, okay? You go to different rinks you've been to 1,000 times or haven't been to, maybe it's brand new. You walk in the door, you find the address. Put it in your phone, okay? When an emergency happens, you don't want to be trying to find the address, because when you call from Prospera Place, you get somebody in Kamloops dispatch that says, where's that? So have that address, because they're going to ask for it every time. Never assume they're going to know, even though it's the most known rink ever. They're not. They're going to ask. And then you have to spend all that time trying to find it. Establishing the role. Okay, obviously if you've taken on the Hockey Canada safety person role, you're the charge person. You're the first to respond to that injury. So knowing who's doing what in the event I need to go on the ice. Okay, for us, it's always the assistant coach who becomes my assistant, fist in the air. Okay, this was the universal sign for a long time. Okay, which hand is holding C-spine? No hands. So I'm always one hand. Okay, if I'm here and I decide, at least I have one hand still there, fist in the air, they know to come, hands back down. Okay, so that's why I don't like this. You'll still see it. This means somebody come help me, I'm in trouble. Okay, but I always go one because I want to keep a hand on a C-spine. Okay, and that's the assistant coach. For us, it's always the assistant coach. Head coach, you're a control person. The first group of people you need to control is the team. Okay, get their attention, pull them away from what's happening. Hey guys, let's bring it in here, right? The last thing you need is a whole bunch of worried teammates going, is he okay, is he okay, is he okay? I want to go and see, right? So that, right away that head coach says, everybody come in here right now. Okay, and then later they start to help with everything else, but that's first and foremost. So that's why we do it that way. Again, if you're fortunate enough to have equipment managers and those kind of things, then they start pulling out all the emergency equipment and all that kind of stuff, right? None of us are quite that fortunate, but and usually if I do a fist in there, the assistant coach will bring my kit out with them so that I have everything, wet splints and all that kind of stuff at my disposal, and blood pressure tests and things like that for doing my vitals, but I want to have whatever I need to kind of come at that time. So that's kind of what I would do. And then always have that medical binder. Do you guys have medical information on your kids? So always having that with your kit, right? That comes out when that kit comes out. Because again, you want to have that right there, ready to go. So I'm just going to quickly go through it again, point by point. I'll be super fast, but find and record the ring address. Have it somewhere on your person, so the assistant coach, you know, punches in your code and boom, it's right there in your notes if you have an iPhone or whatever, right? Locate the AEDs and spine boards. Do all of you have first aid? Yeah, okay, that makes me feel very happy. Because there's so many teams that don't, that their safety people don't have standard first aid. Okay, so it's nice to have, for you guys especially, just that added amount of information, right? Going out there, so knowing where the AEDs are in the building, it might not be that someone goes and gets it, but in the event you had to, you could say there's one right by the front door. Okay, and obviously the ring staff usually knows, but if someone on your team, on your trusted circle, knows, hey, it's at the front door, go get it, that's nice to have. And spine boards if they're available. I don't board, unless I'm somewhere I absolutely have to. I've been in a situation where I kind of wished I boarded, because what was a 5-minute wait turned into like a 25, and the kid was laying on the ice for a really long time, as was I. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to have it there in case, hey, okay, this isn't going the way the ambulance said it would. You know, if you are qualified and is comfortable to do it, you know, it's nice to have the option of it being there if you've got the hands.
So in case where you haven't taken first aid once in my basic first aid,
Mhm.
probably half a dozen times
Yep.
in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
I've done transport and moving in 15 years.
Yep.
It was fire, boarding,
No. So then you hold C-spine. That's all you do. And that's the biggest thing, is you work in your scope, right? And if that's what you can do, honestly, if it's only you, say you are trained, and again, like I said, I've had it 100 times where I am trained, I could do it, but nobody else with me can. Nobody else has training. So is that enough? If I know the ambulance is going to be there in 5 minutes, I'll just stay away, because then they can help me with the role. So don't ever feel like you need to do it. Okay, obviously there's exceptions. If the airway is compromised, then that might be your only option. But always work within your comfort and your scope. Because if you don't have the hands to do it, you don't have the hands to do it. And it's not helping the kid, right? Make sure you have cell phone service in the rink. Okay? All of you with Rogers, always make sure you have cell phone service in the rink. Because I have had that 1,000 times, where you walk in and like it doesn't actually work when you're out on the ice surface. So that's not a situation you really want. So just walk out, check your phone, yep, I've got bars, awesome. No, I don't, okay, who has another provider? Do they? No, they don't, okay, where's the nearest line? And again, check and find out if there's a certain protocol in that rink. Because a lot of times there's a, call this number, please call the ambulance first. Even if it says call this number in an emergency, call the ambulance first if you think you need it. Because you don't want to waste time having someone else decide whether or not you need one. If you think you need one, get one. Then deal with the other stuff. And they'll help direct the ambulance in and that kind of thing. Like I said, charge person is always the person with the most training. So the charge person might change if you're on the scene first and then, you know, someone else comes in who says, I'm a paramedic. Well, you hand off and now they're the charge person, right? You always hand off to the person with the most training. And there's going to be times where, you know, they might still want you to stay at the head so that they can do different things, right? But you're the charge person until you hand off to someone of equal or more qualification. Call person, like I said, usually the assistant coach, someone who's there to relay information, do your talking for you while you're with the athlete. And the control person, like I said, I always go head coach, because they take care of the team. And eventually, if you're deciding to board, get those teams back in their dressing rooms. Don't need the extra onlookers, the stress, all that kind of stuff. And then last is who's going with the athlete to the hospital. Okay. For the therapist, I can't go, especially if the game's continuing. I can't leave, right? So it's not always, it'd be nice if I could go, but it can't always be me because if the team's going to keep playing, I need to stay with that team. So you've got to kind of decide who's going to be able to go. Sometimes it's a parent. If the parent's there, awesome. Please let us know what's going on. We would love to go, but we have 20 other kids we still have to take care of, right? So just kind of deciding that ahead of time, what you do if there's not a parent there. What time do you guys have to leave? What time do you guys want me to stop talking? When I'm done? Okay. So obviously it's your responsibility if you're there as a safety person. It is your responsibility to take care of that. Again, I talked a little bit about scope of practice, but all return to play decisions have to go through your scope of practice. Okay? If you don't know, you don't have the right to make the call. End of story. Okay? And that's with whatever level of training, right? If I don't know if it's safe for the kid to go back, they don't go. Okay? Even if it's gray and you're like, no, I feel like they're probably okay. If there's something in your gut that says this kid probably shouldn't go, you're probably right. Okay? So your scope of practice is dictated by your level of training. Okay? If you have basic first aid, you do basic first aid. If you're not comfortable log rolling, don't log roll. Okay? You do what is comfortable for you and what your training is. And I can't stress that enough. You know, obviously failure to do that if you're working outside your scope, you could hurt the kid worse. Okay, and that's the last thing you want. Okay, there's always that time where if they're not breathing or they're unconscious, take the risk and roll them to get the airway back, right? There's always those situations where it may not be perfect, but it was the best option. Those situations happen, and that's just how it is. But if you know the kid's not going to die, if you don't log roll them or put them on a spine board, and you're not comfortable with taking that risk, don't, right? It's better for the kid. You want to be confident in what you're doing. So don't ever feel pressure to do that. Okay, I've had so many people are like, can we get this game going? Like, I think he's fine. Well, that's not your call, and I don't care if the game goes again today. Like, this kid is the only thing that matters right now. So get over it. And I mean, I like to think at minor hockey level that probably doesn't happen as much, but you know, we've all been with that coach and that team and the rival team and all that kind of stuff. So emotions run and people make poor decisions. One thing I just wanted to kind of remind people of is if you're being paid to cover a game, it's your duty to act. You no longer have a choice. You're not a volunteer. You are providing a medical service, and you're not protected by the Good Samaritan's Act anymore. So if you do something outside of your scope that is found negligent, is worked outside of your scope where you injured someone further, you're no longer protected from that Good Samaritan's Act because you were taking monetary, like you're taking money to provide a service to a team. So just something to be aware of. Again, I know there's lots of teams that hire trainers, and if they're being paid to do it, they're not protected anymore by, hey, I'm volunteering and I'm doing my best and this is what I can do, right? Because we want people to make the difference if there's an option, and that was put in place to protect people who wanted to try and help, right, if they could. So just something to be aware of. Spine injuries. So what's the highest level of training in the room? Standard first aid? Are there any first responders in the room? First responder? Emergency medical responders?
I'm a medical doctor.
A medical doctor, even better, right? So again, you have to know where your scope is, right, and whether or not you can actually make the call. So if you go out and you saw the hit, right, like I said, seeing the hit is so important. Because when someone says, oh, they got hit, it doesn't tell you anything about how they went into the boards, how they got hit. You want to see it. If you think there might be a spinal injury, like, you can't really say, like, oh, that's probably fine, right? So you want to know if they complain, I have neck pain, within your scope, can you clear that? Even if they're like, no, I think I'm okay. If they have neck pain, it's not in your scope to say it's safe for you to get up and come and play again, right? So just keeping that in mind, can you clear C-spine? Okay? Are you qualified to do that? And are you willing to take the risk if you're wrong? Okay? Again, mechanism of injury is a really big indicator. So the more you can be watching, the more you can actually see on the ice, the better. Obviously, if you think that it might be a neck injury, the first thing you do is go down and hold C-spine. Then you talk to the athlete. Okay, if I ever see a hit, or maybe I don't see it, the first thing I do is grab their head. Hey, little Johnny, are you okay? What hurts? Oh, it's my ankle. Your neck doesn't hurt? No, my neck's fine. It's my ankle. Awesome, now I let go. Okay, if I didn't see it. But if I saw it and I know I don't let go until I have to. Okay, the other thing I wanted to just talk about is C-spine on hockey helmets. You don't fold the helmet. They're not tight enough to actually provide stability. So you've got to kind of reach under and grab on to the skull kind of back here, because the helmet will just slide around. So that was kind of just one piece of you're trying to actually get onto their bones, because football helmets, you can go right on the helmet, they're tight. Same with like motorcycle helmets and those kind of things, but hockey helmets are too loose. They don't actually provide a good
You have to keep them elevated because their shoulder pads keep them up.
It's
Right.
totally, like female hockey, the shoulder pads usually aren't as big, so sometimes you can get away with it if you take off the helmet. But I'll always look if they have big bulky shoulder pads. You can't do a helmet removal without a chest or like a gear removal. So again, if you're not qualified or don't know how to do a full equipment removal, don't do it, right? Like, because there's a very particular way to do all of that equipment removal, and if you can't remove the helmet without, leave the helmet on, because that's the best kind of scenario for the kid. Questions about that? Okay, head injuries. So basic training in head injuries, I think, is an absolute must. How many of you have heard of SCAT 3? Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's lots of like simple tools that have been brought in for people to use. You can read through it and do it. It's easy, right? So it's just helping you identify. For me, the biggest thing is I like you guys to help and be able to identify it on the bench, right? In your scans and just watching the athletes and start to recognize what are some of the signs and symptoms, right? It doesn't actually take necessarily an impact right to the head to cause a concussion. Just whipping your sideline tools, the SCAT3, look it up. It's all there. Again, just be aware that those things are there to help you. And then it has a little symptom like inventory score that you can go through. And if they're complaining of headaches, if you saw a hit and you think like, oh, that was a bad hit, you should be asking that kid, how's your head? Do you have a headache? Do you have dizziness? Do you have blurred vision? Do you feel weird? A lot of times they'll just say like, feel tired, and they talk slow, right? Those things are all signs of a concussion. So you need to start to be able to kind of recognize those. It's really, really hard. It's really hard. When the kid says, I have a headache, well, it's also game 5, and they've played, got up at 5 o'clock this morning to be at the rink for 7 and for their 8 o'clock game. Kids get headaches and that kind of thing. But the big thing is, again, was there a mechanism of injury for it? Okay? Did you see something? Were they fine before that and now they have a headache? Is it paired with blurred vision or dizziness or balance issues, right? So just trying to kind of sort through all of that. Obviously, if there's ever uncertainty, if you can't say for sure that kid does not have a concussion, they do until they see a medical professional. Okay? If you don't know, you need to protect the kid. Okay? Second impact syndrome, a second impact after they get a first impact. You all heard about the rugby player who died out in Ontario recently. Had an undiagnosed concussion. Didn't really tell anybody, he didn't want people to know. All of her teammates knew, from what I understand anyway. And she went back, took another hit. By the time it was recognized, I think she did go to the hospital before she passed away, but there was a massive bleed. And it happens. It happens all the time. When I was going through athletic therapy, the year before me, a football player, same thing, had gone like unreported, took a second hit, died on the sideline, like before they could even transport, because it can happen so fast in that second impact. So you never want to put an athlete out there if you're not sure. Always seek medical professionals to make those decisions. And then remember that they happen together, head and spinal injuries, right? Like I said, that neck injury, they didn't actually hit their head, but if they're having head-brain symptoms, they can happen together. Post-game cool-down, so we're helping with muscle recovery now. Game's over. We're looking ahead to what happens next. We're trying to do a little bit of light activity again. If you have bikes available, then it helps to flush out some of the lactate, get rid of some of the delayed onset muscle soreness, that kind of thing. This is where I'll start to do the static stretching. Okay, some of them like to do a little bit of the leg swings and that kind of thing. Totally fine. Again, that's more of a dynamic stretch. But this is where you want to actually start to do some static stuff. Let them sit. We're trying to cool them down. Let their heart rates come down. So that static stretch should be nice and gentle. Okay, people love to overstretch and push way in. All you need is tension. Okay, that's all we're looking for. If you're pushing really hard and you have a really strong stretch, the muscle automatically, protective mechanism contracts to protect itself so it doesn't get torn. So you want to be really gentle with your stretch so that you can actually kind of relax into it and increase the length. So that's where we want to kind of go more to that static stretch. Same thing, we want to try and hit those major muscle groups. I want to get my hamstrings, I want to get my quads. For skaters, piriformis, right? Laying on the ground and grabbing here to get that nice stretch through the hip, through the butt. The sciatic nerve killer is the piriformis, right? So trying to get them into those positions. Again, hip stuff, opening up their hips, stretching out the quads, doing some low back, just nice, easy movement stuff. Trying to hit all those kind of major muscle groups in your static stretch. And then if you have it available, foam rolling. So foam rolling is to help kind of release some of the fascia. Helps kind of break down. So fascia is, if you've ever eaten like chicken or anything, it's that kind of hard stuff to like pull off. Not the skin, but kind of the cartilagey looking stuff, for lack of a better word, that thicker stuff. That's and it encases all of our muscles. So we're actually trying to get rid of some of the adhesions. If you've had a tear or a pull before, you kind of get thickening in certain portions. So it helps to loosen up that fascia so the muscle can actually move and stretch within its case a little bit better. So that's what foam rolling is for. And then obviously like the massage effect you get from the foam roller as well. There's lots of different kinds of foam rollers, from soft and like squishy, so it's less aggressive, to PVC pipe type stuff that is evil and hurts. So you can kind of find a happy medium to whatever works, right? And we never want to start an athlete foam rolling on something too aggressive, because it will make them sore for sure. So I just wanted to touch really quickly on sport concussion management. So Dr. Ryan out of Kelowna kind of runs this thing, sports concussion management. He manages all of our concussions and our concussion protocol at the Okanagan Hockey Academy. He also works with quite a few other teams out of Penticton and Kelowna. I think he's servicing approximately 7,000 athletes this year. And they've been going for 7 years now. The big thing for them is staying on top of current research. So research is changing all the time. I'm sure you've all heard the medical field that changes, well, it seems like all the time in all areas. So they really try to stay on top of the latest and greatest as far as management of concussions go. They do baseline assessments, so there's nothing better than comparing the athlete to themselves. Okay, you can compare to other kids their age and that kind of thing, but it's never as good as actually comparing to that athlete, because not all of them know the months of the year, even when they're 14, as I'm finding more and more, which is kind of scary. But then to ask them to tell it to you backwards, it's no surprise they're struggling, because they couldn't tell you forward before they actually got hit. So having that baseline is a huge help, so as you get to know your athletes especially. Again, the big things for them is that preseason, like baseline testing, being able to actually converse with a physician and help you through the process. The big thing that we see all the time is they go to see their family practitioner, and a lot of times they're given, in a week's time you're probably going to be good to go, or if you don't have a headache in a week, then you're probably ready. So it goes through the full return to play protocol with activity. So basically for us, once the athlete is symptom free, we start a graduated return into activity. So always starting with a light aerobic, non-impact. So we start with the bike, 20 minutes, nice and easy. Then they have to go 24 hours symptom free. So as you increase in physical activity, the same goes for school, right? They might not be able to go to school for a few days. You don't want to start physical activity the same day you start them back to school, because that cognitive activity could be enough to increase their symptoms. So just is a kind of provides that step-by-step information on how to safely return. Okay, we're going to school now. Okay, we're starting light activity. Now we're going to bump it up to moderate activity or low impact. Okay, now you can run and try that. Into resistance training, again, that increases blood pressure when you're doing lifting. So now that could bring on symptoms. Then into non-contact, there's computer-based testing to get more of that coordination and executive function, so making decisions while moving and things like that. So computer baseline testing, and then computer testing again, comparing to themselves for those reaction times, like for goalies especially, right? Even though they seem fine, their reaction times are still way off. Well, now they're taking a puck in the mask because they're too slow to actually get their hand in. So it's nice to have kind of those additional objective, as you can get kind of with concussion, measures to help compare, hey, is this kid actually ready to compete again? And again, everything changes. Just because it was one way or they healed this strapped by, I get to see you once. I haven't seen you go through any of it, so having that kind of contact all the way through, how am I progressing, how did I do after school, how did I do when I started, you know, just a light bike ride, let alone running and jumping on the cement, because that's where we warm up, right? Before you actually start taking a hit. Okay, finally, last documentation. The worst part of every person's job is actually documenting everything that happened. So again, you guys all said you have medical binders and medical cards, which is super helpful when the parents aren't there. You don't want to have to be tracking it down and that kind of thing. The Hockey Canada injury forms, so you have to send that in, fill it out. If they actually have to go to the doctor, it needs to go to the doctor or the dentist so they can fill out their portion so that it can then go in case there needs to be an insurance claim. So it always goes to your personal insurance first, but then Hockey Canada, if you know a major injury happens or that kind of thing, then that form has to be submitted within 90 days of the injury for them to be able to find insurance in the event that you know it was major or whatever, right? So you don't want to have not submitted and then that family come back and say, hey, we need this. Notes, so all of you did the Hockey Canada safety program and got your binder with all the information. So just that simple log of like what I did today, who I saw, you know, or what happened, just so that you, even if it's just cues for you to jog your memory in the event that something does happen, if you know what you did or how involved you were. Again, often you're handing off to the paramedics or whatever in a major injury, so they're going to have their notes and that kind of thing. But you always want to have a little bit of an account of what your involvement was, what you did until the paramedics got there. So keeping that kind of stuff. And then obviously insurance, so you know, making sure it's a Hockey Canada sanctioned event so that you actually have insurance from Hockey Canada. If it's not a sanctioned event, then your organization might actually have to get their own insurance for hockey camps and things like that. So just being aware of like where you fit into it all. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions? Comments?
It was very good, thank you very much.
Thank you.